Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Watching the Boxes Fantasy Basketball Podcast, hosted by #basketball.com. Your host for the very best fancy tools and analysis on the entire internet. Go check them out. #basketball.com. I'm your host, Mike Catron, and joining me from the depths of a bunker, many, many miles under the earth, where every NBA game is playing simultaneously for the last 10 years, so his brain can analyze and synthesize all of the inputs and outputs that are required to be a fantasy basketball master. Tyler P. Watts, what's up, Tyler?
It's a sad day, Michael. Just a
Whoa.
sad day.
Tyler, you're sad? I did not see that coming. Tyler, what's wrong? What's wrong, man?
Chris Middleton just does not sound good. Does not sound good for Mr. Middleton.
Oh, no. I actually have not heard this news. I know we have some shaky questions about Trey Murphy. I know Hartenstein. I always forget his name. Isaiah Hartenstein. Anyway, I know he's out for like a month-ish. What's going on with our boy Middleton?
So obviously, season's here. We're getting some updates finally on some of these players, and Middleton's didn't sound that bad, right? They only ruled him out for the opener, but there was a very interesting line in something that Shams wrote for ESPN that I will read it. The whole paragraph. Here you go. Okay. Middleton did not appear in a preseason game and still hasn't been cleared to participate in 5-on-5 scrimmages at practice.
Oh.
He had participating in 3-on-3 scrimmages for most of preseason, but Bucks head coach Doc Rivers told reporters over the weekend that Middleton had been limited in practice since Wednesday.
Yeah, that's not good. I guess it's a little further than Kawhi Leonard and his news of being just out indefinitely. But also, isn't this just the same thing, out indefinitely?
Yeah, we talked about that Kawhi one, I mean, even a couple weeks ago, that, like, what they were saying and what they were, like, what Kawhi was actually saying and what the Clippers kept saying were not matching up. And here it looks like kind of the same thing, right? Like, oh, Middleton will be ready. I mean, like, that to me sounds like Middleton had a setback, and Middleton's probably not going to be ready for a while. I mean, like, I can't imagine you're going to go from not even doing 3-on-3 to then suddenly playing in a game after you've had 2 ankle surgeries.
No, it took like Lonzo Ball like 2 years to do that. So don't love that. I don't think it's that severe. I don't think Middleton's going to be out for 2 years or even the whole year. But once again, the Bucks have one goal. They have one of the best teams in the East, and they're trying to win a championship. There's no reason to rush Middleton back. There's no reason to play him in back-to-backs. There's no reason to play him more than 22, 24 minutes a game. I think a lot of people who were kind of saying, hey, they're after pick 100, Chris Middleton's still around, including myself. I think I have Middleton on at least a couple of my teams with a late-round pick. It would be nice if he played 28, 29 minutes. He played really well at the end of last season when he was ramping up for the playoffs. But this feels like the best case scenario is a season like last season. And I don't know if we're even going to get that. If you have Middleton on your team, Tyler, are you just dropping him completely, or are you going to see what you can get for him?
I mean, I don't think you drop him completely because obviously this news isn't concrete in any way, right? Like, we don't really know what's going to happen. I mean, obviously he's going to be out for some undetermined period of time, and then there's going to be, like you mentioned, a slow ramp up. So, like, it's not going to be anytime soon necessarily, but I feel like I'm not just outright dropping him at this point unless, like, you know, there's someone really, really good on the waiver wire that I want to pick up. Save for that, I mean, I really don't know. Like, I don't think you're going to trade him for anything, so I think he's just going to kind of sit there on your bench.
Yeah, if you don't have an IR, I actually might. I'm not going to just go drop him, but we're about to talk about week 1, and I'm going to talk about the same 3 things that I talk about every single year at this time of the year to all of our listeners. If you're on the podcast, check us out on YouTube. If you're on the YouTube, check us out on the podcast. um, you should be hitting the waiver wires really, really hard in the first, like the first days, really, especially the first week, absolutely the first 2 weeks. And Middleton goes from one of those players where I'd be like, oh, there's probably some other players on my team I would drop before Middleton, to being somebody on the waiver wire is out there and they look hot and they're got good upside, and I want to get him on my team. Middleton probably goes to the top of the list of the first guy I drop off my team if I have Middleton, if I don't have an IR spot.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely fair, especially in a standard league where, I mean, what if he doesn't play for a month? What if he doesn't play for 2 months? Like that's a long time to just wait, especially with no IR, just sitting there
A
getting
lot of
zero production from somebody.
Yeah, that's a lot of weeks. Like with a lot of people playing incredibly short seasons, especially in head-to-head leagues, where I think the recommendation is to have your playoffs start in like week 17 or 18. 8 weeks is a long time. It's half the season.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I mean, we talked about this in the past. Like, I don't really like to do that, but if that's how you like to play, then I mean, yeah, that's. I mean, obviously, every week that someone misses is one less week that you have them.
Well, it is week one, which is crazy. I can't believe it's week one. I can't believe we're about to see real life human beings in what is not a simulation, not some sort of computer. We don't all live in a hologram, maybe, but real life human beings playing NBA basketball like Tuesday. Like it's going to be fantastic. We have 10 games on Wednesday, and I actually think one team, because I was looking at a couple teams don't play till their first game till Thursday. So it is a very, I say it's a pretty difficult week to stream because you got those Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays. Every single week, we will be bringing you what to prepare for, what to look at in week one here at the Watching the Boxes YouTube/podcast video extraordinaire. We got to work on these titles, Tyler. I did not prep any of the titles. What are you most excited about going into week one?
I just can't wait to tell you next week about week one because I think I'll know what happened. So that'll be fun. Um,
Is there,
what am I most
yeah, is there any like players you're like just like keeping the side eye on, just being like, oh, I see you, I see you. What's his name from Miami? The big giant center who might or might not play.
Well, where?
Yeah,
Question mark.
hello, where? That's what I'm thinking of. I got him in my list. I'm like, ooh, I gotta watch that Ware guy.
Yeah, I would say all rookies probably. I mean, especially first round picks belong on that list just to see like, especially if they're on your waiver wire. Is he playing? How much is he playing? What is he doing? Um, this draft class caught a bad rap as being bad, but I mean, I think we saw during preseason like there was a lot of interesting stuff from guys like Dalton Connect and just a number of rookies. Reed Shepard played well and all that. So that's something that obviously I think everyone should be watching for. And some of these things are going to need context, right? Like I mentioned that Middleton injury. Like who's going to step up? It's probably going to be Torian Prince and Gary Trent. Like are those guys going off? And if so, those two might be pickups because you know Middleton's out for what could be a while. And
Yeah,
the Thunder have a similar situation with Hartenstein. And there's some very murky injury questions for certain guys, like just haven't really played in the preseason and they haven't really said if this person is going to play on opening night or when they're going to play. And so I think just looking to see who got the minutes and who did things. Minutes more than anything are what I'm looking for. Like who is going to play in some of these rotations, um, who is not going to play. And obviously, everybody's going to be watching on Tuesday. But like on Wednesday, a lot of people aren't going to be watching a lot of those games, right? There's 10 games. So I would look more to the games where it's two teams that nobody might care about, like the
yes.
Hawks and the Nets, or the
Mhm.
Hornets and the Rockets,
Yeah.
or the Bulls and the Pelicans, right?
Hey,
Like
oh,
those
hey.
games where not many people are paying attention could be where you find a fantasy value, whether that's for the first couple weeks or the first 2 months.
Usually the
That's
whole season, right? We talk about this all the time. It's just like out of sight, out of mind. Like people forgot about Orlando until Orlando kind of got good. People are going to forget about Washington really, really quickly. But like there are guys, there are actually very some quality fantasy basketball players on the Wizards that should be rostered, right? And I think you hit the nail on the head. Week one, and really all season long, there's one stat that's the most important stat, and that's minutes. I'm very interested in the rotations for Portland, especially with their bigs, right? I'm very interested in what's going to happen in Detroit with Jaden Ivey. Like, is he really going to be the starter? Is how long is he going to be the starter? What kind of minutes are we looking at? Jalen Suggs in Orlando. I think I'm interested in Alex Sarr with the Wizards as well. Like, I have him as one of my late round flyers that I probably picked in a majority of my drafts simply because his fantasy game with the blocks and he hits threes and he gets rebounds. It's like that's like a rarer type of guy, and they have no reason not to play Sar like 30 plus minutes a game, unless he's fouling out, which also might happen, right? I don't know. And I think the real opening night is Wednesday, and that is when you're going to get the most information, and that is when you're going to want to. I feel like if you're not making a pickup on Wednesday night, then I hope your team is fucking awesome. Because if it is not, and you're not making a pickup on Wednesday night, I feel like you're putting yourself behind. The last three guys on your team should be interchangeable with the waiver wire because you should be streaming games anyway if you're in a head-to-head league. And even if you're in a roto league and you're kind of took some flyers on some guys, you're waiting for them to come across, you can wait forever for, Sar to get good, or you can go pick up someone who's actually starting, like Zach Edey or something like that. If he's straight up starting and playing in Memphis and he's playing well and he's on your waiver wire, you could wait forever for Sar to get ready, or you can go get the guy who's actually playing right now. And it's those types of moves I think that really can swing a league, even make sure you make the playoffs, have a strong team into the playoffs. There's been so many first week waiver wire players, like Desmond Bain was a first week waiver wire player. A long time ago, Steph Curry was a first week waiver wire player. Like, really, that first week can change your season.
Oh, for sure. And I think too, like you mentioned, like if you're not picking anyone up, well, if you're not picking anyone up, you probably should make a consolidation trade and just, take two of your guys, get someone better, and have that spot to play the waiver wire.
Absolutely. Like, that is 100% what you need to be doing because you have to be able to play the waiver wire, I think, to be successful in head to head leagues. And even in roto leagues, but head to head leagues, points leagues, all the leagues. The waiver wire is your friend. And the first week is one of the most important weeks. The other, big rule, and this is the most important rule. This is rule number one, Tyler. And I think you know what this rule is. Do not panic. It's the worst thing you can do in week one. If you're coming over new from fantasy football and you're used to freaking out because of one bad week from some of your players, Damian Lillard, like, was it last year or 2 years ago, Tyler, where he like came out and was shooting like 32%? Like they changed the balls or something like that, like the nylon or the leather on the balls or something like that. And all of a sudden, Dame Lillard was shooting 32% for like the first month. Like, what year was that? Do you remember that?
That was the year he was hurt, right?
That was also the
That's
year
the
he
year
was
he
hurt.
had that. Yeah, it was the year he had that abdominal injury.
Yeah,
That was not last year, but the year before, right?
maybe not the best example because you probably should have moved him. But like a lot of people, like we didn't know he had an abdominal injury in the first month, and he was playing through something. Most players aren't going to get off to a slow start, but some great players absolutely are going to get off to a slow start this season. And it's your job not to panic. It's your job not to drop anyone that you drafted in, like, I don't know, the top 80, top 90. Do not just drop those players. Those players have value even if they're not playing well. Do not make a panic trade. Do not assume that your season is over after week one or week two or week three. That's not how this works. But on the flip side of that, right? Flip it all the way around. You should be exploiting the panic in other players. Other managers are going to panic. They're going to see that LeBron looks is played didn't play in back to backs, and he had like 2 bad games in the first 2 weeks, and they're gonna go, shit, I wasted my draft pick on 40-year-old LeBron. I cannot believe it. And then you could like trade Paulo Banchero, who's playing wild good, for LeBron, and then you get an upgrade. It's pretty nice. Like that's going to happen this season.
Yeah, I would say that that works, on the flip side of the coin in this way too. Like if you drafted somebody in the second round, you don't necessarily want to trade that person for somebody that got drafted in the fifth round and scored 140-point game,
Yes.
right? Like everything's gonna mostly revert back to the way that it was. And so like just because, I don't know, whoever your second round pick was, Domantas Sabonis, he only had 12 points and 8 rebounds the first week. And I don't know, insert Kyle Kuzma had a 50-point game. Don't be trading Domantas Sabonis for Kyle Kuzma.
Shout out Kyle Kuzma, by the way. Big 50-point game. Congratulations. I mean, that's 100% right. Like, don't get really intrigued by a hot hand. 85, 90% of players, and we say this every single year, we say this all year long. Honestly, I think it is what separates uh, watching the boxes fantasy basketball from a majority of the other analysts out there is we try not to overreact. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I ain't overreacting about everything that's going on with the Bulls, but that's a whole other subject. We try not to overreact. We try to continue to understand these players will revert to the mean. Like almost always over the course of the season, players revert to the mean. It's really rare for someone who's over the age of 27 or 28 to have a leap, to take that breakout season. I'm not saying it's never happened. It's definitely happened. But rarely do leaps happen for any, it's like significant leaps happen for any player, right? And I think with the amount of people who are doing fantasy basketball analysis out there, we kind of know the grouping of players who are in maybe their third year, fourth year, who have either a better like playing time situation now, or already been on an upward trajectory, or are budding superstars like Anthony Edwards. We know they have the potential to take a leap, and if they do take a leap, well, that's what you paid for, right? Because Anthony Edwards, if you recall from your draft that you did 24 hours ago, was going in the first round in some of these drafts. So like you definitely overpaid for Anthony Edwards if you got him in the first round. But we kind of already know what players are gonna take the leap. The key is finding the players, and they're usually on the waiver wire, who like took that leap right away, like look like they could take that like big jump leap and are playing really well right away. It might just be a hot hand. And if it's a hot hand, well, you're playing the hot hand, you're getting the stats, you're boosting your team, you're boosting your quality starts if you're in a roto league, and then you draft a player. That's fine. Or you might just end up with like a Desmond Bain all season and you got a top 50 player off the waiver wire. But I feel like the days of finding like top 50 players off the waiver wire might be a little bit over, Tyler, because one player that I'm going to be watching very, very closely, who's had a very nice preseason, is Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller is like kind of like your quintessential like guy. He's on a team, right? He's on a team that no one's watching outside of the Greater Charlotte area. He's not a household name. He, if you go look at his rankings from last season, they weren't particularly good. But the same thing with like the way we talked about Franz Wagner when he was younger, Miles Bridges when he was younger. When you watch him play, there's something there. This could be Brandon
Yeah.
Millen's
Oh, I agree.
year, or it could be next year. I don't know, but right now, I think he's definitely one of those players that could take a leap.
For sure. And I mean, obviously, like a young guy, super high pick, like very talented. So, I mean, it's not out of the question. I think Charlotte is investing in their young talent. It seems right that they're finally kind of skewing a little bit more towards that rebuild. which they should have done a couple years ago. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Miller can do. Can he take that leap into averaging, 22 points a game and, get a few more assists and a few more steals and a few more blocks to be like, that really solid, um, top 50 player. I mean, that's yet to be seen, but that's the trajectory at least.
And like this is a player that I'm keeping an eye out on for like two reasons. One, I think he is kind of like a breakout candidate, but two, if he has a slow start, it kind of doesn't change my attitude about I think he could have a nice breakout year, right? So if Brandon Miller is having a slow start, if Jalen Johnson, who everybody's on, is having a slow start, those are players that you could target early in the season to make, I wouldn't call it a panic trade, I guess, but maybe I'd call it a trade of convenience, a trade of a value trade, a smart trade. We'll have to work on the title on what kind of trade this is, but you're trading for upside with like a comparable player. So you might be doing like a 1-to-1 trade or maybe 90 cents on the dollar trade for someone who's having a slow start. But then, in the long term, you're getting a much better return on your value. Um, Tyler, it's kind of I don't know. It's kind of a hard week to stream. There's no teams that are playing more than 3 games. There's a handful of teams that are playing 2 games this week, so it's a weird week. Like week 2 is going to be a lot easier to talk about. And my favorite thing to do to all our listeners is go out to #basketball.com and go to the um, advanced schedule. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Yeah, schedule, advanced schedule. There it is. You guys can see it. It's just like my favorite tool to do in my head-to-head leagues. I just go out here, I see what teams are playing, when they're playing, what days, and I say, all right, how do I set myself up for success, and how do I set myself up for success next week as well. Like I ain't stopping. I ain't picking people up just for this week. I'm also picking people up for week 2. So Tyler, are there any players who are like out on the waiver wires or any players on any teams that you're kind of focusing on, not just for this week, but for also for week 2?
That's a good question. Week two starts off with a crazy 11 game slate on Monday. So obviously you're going to be pretty locked into that. But there is a couple of Sunday, Tuesday back to backs, which are two shorter days, or two lighter days, I should say, on games. The Warriors have that. The Nets have that. And there's one more team, and I just lost it. The New Orleans Pelicans. So I think those teams are kind of places you should be looking, and I think some of those teams have some questionable rotations, right? Including the Warriors. Like, who's gonna play minutes? They signed Buddy Hield, they signed D'Anthony Melton, they signed Kyle Anderson. Like, who's getting those minutes? All that stuff. So they're definitely a team that I'm watching closely in their first couple games. Um, the Pelicans, kind of the same way. Are they going to play Zion at the 5 the whole time? Do they play a center quite a bit? Is that center Daniel Tice, which you probably don't want if it is? Um, but I mean, anyone playing 30 minutes a game, like if the league's deep enough, you don't want Daniel Tice even.
Yeah.
So those are some situations that I'm just kind of monitoring this week. And Brooklyn, like, they're another team in a similar boat where like they're clearly headed towards rebuilding. Do they play their veterans a bunch of minutes to try to get them traded, or do they, kind of split the minutes between veterans and young guys and try to develop some young talent they have on that roster? Like, they're another interesting team that it might be worth, picking up somebody as a flyer,
Yeah.
even like
I love like a Noah
to
Clowney or
just
a Dennis Schroeder if they're still on your waiver wires, right?
yeah, and just see like how much is this person playing, and if it's not working, then you feel free to drop them after the first night and go for somebody else.
Yeah. And the non-traditional 2 game back, like the non-traditional back-to-back where you're getting that low game Sunday and low game Tuesday. It's not a traditional back-to-back, but you are boosting your games played in week 1, and with a waiver wire pick in week 1, you're boosting your games in week 2. Those make significant differences. And I think one of my gripes about head-to-head leagues that don't set up their rules properly is that people exploit just maximizing their games. And if you're super involved in your fantasy basketball league, that's great. Not everybody is. So if you're in a league where everyone's super involved, that might not matter. If you're in a league where there's like some casual people playing, and you should have a pickup limit, right? But even that pickup limit can be exploited in these little ways that give you that extra game. And an extra game could you win you a week. Steals, blocks, even sometimes threes are pretty variable turnovers, pretty variable from week to week. So getting that extra start sometimes is actually a huge boost, maybe even two extra starts, a huge boost into preparing yourself for week two with a week one pickup. Um, I don't know if there's much else to say about honestly week one other than I'll reiterate again, don't panic. Like this is the NBA season is going to be fun. Um, get, I mean, I'm not going to, I don't know. I was about to promote NBA League Pass. Listen, if you pirate these games, shout out to you as well. I don't care what you're up to. That's on you. Do what you got to do, though, to watch the games on Wednesday, 10 game slate. And I think that's where you're going to get the most value. We will absolutely be back Tuesday, Wednesday, around that time to review the box scores. The show is called Watching the Boxes. We're going to look at the box scores for these games, Tyler. Is there anything else, Tyler, you want to prepare everybody for week one? Anything you want to plug? Anything else you got?
I guess I'll end with this thought. There's a lot of back to backs, especially Friday, Saturday. Um, if you're in a head to head league where it's daily, you might want to watch out for news of guys like LeBron and them like sitting back to backs,
Yep.
right? Like older players sitting back to backs. Like you could get an opportunity where there's somebody on the waiver wire, um, on a couple of different teams. The Sixers have already said that Paul George and Joel Embiid, like obviously Paul George is injured right now, and so maybe is Joel Embiid, but they're not playing back to backs this year. So like if you see those opportunities on a game day, and I think in a lot of cases for the Sixers, they're probably going to sit Embiid in one and Paul George in the other. So like
Yep.
there could be some good opportunities there.
And one of my favorite last round picks, which I think I actually took him in like the third to last round in one of my leagues because I knew someone was going to steal him. I think Andre Drummond's going to win a lot of weeks for people.
Oh yeah, I mean
He's silly.
100%. He's just going to get a ton of rebounds.
And I love the video. You know it's a hype video. You know it's preseason. You know it's about the NBA season when it's like, guess who learned how to shoot a three pointer? Andre Drummond doing all these sorts of drills, shooting threes, and it's like, all right, everybody, settle down, chill out. But the dude can get you like double digit rebounds in like, I mean, honestly, he can get you double digit rebounds in 10 minutes. Probably more like 18, but like he could do it. And a steal and a block.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean in those games where, Embiid is out too, like is it crazy to see him getting 10, 12 points? I don't think it is.
If he's playing 30 minutes, not at all. I think he could go absolutely wild.
That's what I mean. So he gives you 12 points, 20 rebounds, and like that's enough to maybe swing that one category right there. And then the
Yeah.
steals and the blocks might also swing you three categories.
So yeah, that's gonna be on. If he's on your waiver, I'm just saying right now. How about this? I rarely tell people to go pick someone up before the season starts. If Andre Drummond is on your waiver wire and there's someone on your team that you're like, I don't really care about this dude. Just go pick up Andre Drummond right now. Put in your money for it. Like, go put in $12 of your free agency cash for Andre Drummond. Pick him up on a Monday. How about that? Why not? I think that's
Sounds
it.
perfect to me.
I think that's it, Tyler. You can find Tyler at Tyler P Watts on Twitter. You can find me at Watch the Boxes. How did I forget my own Twitter name? Not watching the boxes, watch the boxes, which I should probably change, but who's got the time? All on the X app, the everything app, X.com, which is what it's called, which is hilarious. I think that's it. We'll see all of you very soon for actually watching the box scores in week 1. Congratulations. The NBA is back, and we will see you next time.